Wouldn't it be wonderful to gather everyone together every single time a decision was going to be made, a task was going to be assigned, get the collaborative input from the entire team throughout the group, and then be able to move forward? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. That is the most effective way to move forward. But in today's organizations, especially large organizations, that's almost impossible. So how do you do that? How do you have that level of collaboration and clarity that you need to be successful, but not have to join everybody together all in one group? And today we're going to talk a little bit about that, so stay tuned. So collaboration really is that broad communication across an organization that allows for that historical and creative input. You see, when we share information with others, others are willing to share back. And that's a standard operating procedure for most people. And so that is a huge benefit of collaboration, being able to collect that input. Additionally, collaboration provides a level of clarity that is typically unseen. So you have all played the game where you're standing in a circle, somebody tells the person to their right a secret, and then that phrase or secret is passed among the group until finally the person to their left receives the information and shares it back with the originator. We all know how the game ends. The game ends with that information that came back to the originator is usually about 60% accurate if you're lucky. So how do we really help our organizations provide that clarity that they need? Because in that miscommunication, not intentional by the way, but in that miscommunication, we have that breakdown of the interpretation of what it is that needs to be done, ultimately driving up our costs in multiple ways. Our staff costs, as far as the churn that's required, is this really what's meant? As well as execution costs, perhaps we're implementing or purchasing something or providing a service, all of which inflate our costs when we don't have clarity and collaboration in our communication. So how can we get through this, and what technology is available to do that? Well, we can use a task management program. Now here I'm going to speak about Planner, but this could be done if modified inside perhaps an Asana environment or other types of task managers. So here on the screen, we're showing what we call as plans. So within the plan environment, we can have this shared clarity and collaboration within our organization. And we do that through the development of plans. Now, a plan is a collection of buckets, and buckets are collections of tasks. So we're going to go into that more detail here in the next couple of screens. But just to get started, what type of plans do I need for my organization? Well, to make that collaboration real and that clarity real, you really need to start with a personal plan. That's a plan that's just for you, represented there on the screen, called personal. And that's where you're just putting your tasks. Typically, you're not sharing it with anybody. It's kind of your to-do list. Then you may want to look at a private plan, a one-on-one plan. Perhaps you have a relationship with subordinates or peers that you just work collaboratively with, but you really want that communication isolated between two individuals. So for example, in my world, that means that I have an organization with line leaders, right? Directors and such of individual groups of people. I'm going to have, as the leader of the organization, I'm going to have all of those line leaders, or the folks that report to me, maybe in one-to-one groups, so that I can share tasks with them individually without having to share it with the multitude. And I do that because, one, I don't want to, in case the task is sensitive by nature, perhaps about one of their team members, I don't want to expose that before the time is right. And two, I don't want to embarrass the individual. I want to make sure that whatever tasking I have, that they're feeling comfortable with it as well. The third item there is really a shared plan. And a shared plan really is a plan that I'm sharing with other people within a group. So for example, on this screen, it might be the ServiceNow consultants. Now, a shared plan can also include guests. So for example, in the upper right, LMWS is a group that I work with external guests, meaning they're not even part of my, what we call a tenant or my organization. They're external to me, but they're trusted to come into my environment in this shared group. And then of course you have the last type of plan, which is a focused plan. It may be focused around a project or a program. For example, in the middle of the screen, the M365 program. So the second way to really make certain that we have this collaboration and clarity within our environment is to have a consistent way for tasking. Now, a task is an action item. So if I ask you to do something, I am tasking you to do that. Often the word task and task management get a bad name, but the reality is we're asking people, especially in a team environment, asking them to do something. And so that's a very important point to realize. I'm the father of 6 boys. I ask my children to do things all the time. My wife asks me to do things all the time, right? And vice versa. So we share tasks among one another. So that consistency within the task is absolutely critical. Now, what you're seeing here may be a little bit over the top for your organization, but you can adjust it. But notice there at the top of the screen where it says template or outcome. So what is it? We would erase template and outcome, and we would put in what the name of the task is. What is it that you want this task to accomplish? The AO, and then the double pipes there are just a separation. The AO means who is the action officer? Who's going to take action? Now this is, action officer is a Department of Defense, federal government type of term. So you could name it anything you like, but it kind of works. So who is ultimately responsible for this? And if you notice in the notes section below, you also have the title of the task, the name of the plan, the AO, the OCR, OPR, POC. So you can fill in all that information or not have it as part of your template. It doesn't matter. LOE means level of effort. So how much time are you spending or need to spend to accomplish this task? Now this becomes important because when you're looking to prioritize, which we're going to talk about in other videos, to prioritize that task, I want to be able to know what the level of effort is going in. And then the final is the date and time. And I put these in square brackets, but the date I usually put as month, day, year, all in numeric values. So if today was April 4th, 2021, I would put in 040421 hyphen, and then whatever the time is. So if it's 1800, 6 p.m., I would put in 1800. Now what this does is it creates what we call a unique identifier. And that unique identifier can be associated with that task. And if you send out email to other people, they will know it by that unique identifier as well. So now when that email comes in, they're totally outside of your organization. You haven't assigned them any tasks, but you want to make sure when their data comes in, you can feed it back into your task. A unique identifier, trust me, is going to save you tons of time because I can just search on that unique ID within Outlook, for example, and find that message, or search within Planner and find where it is. And then the notes section you see below is pretty self-explanatory. And then I always like to put in what's the outcome and what's the output. So what does the outcome look like? What does success look like? And then if there's an output like a document or a dashboard or a briefing, perhaps we do it there. The next thing we really talk about is, can we automate task entry? So we looked here on this screen where we see a lot of information there within the notes and the structure within the title, but you can totally automate that. And this right here is an example of that automation. So you see 2 examples. The one on the left is task management into Planner. So that means that we can put in the name of the task right here. We can put in the due date. We can put in who the AO is and give some details and answer a few more questions of this form. A form, by the way, that's exactly like a form you would fill out on the internet anywhere. Do it from your mobile device or from your desktop. And then automatically that information will be created into the task with all of this data that you want. Pretty cool. That's done through Power Automate. We're not going to go into that discussion here, but see other videos on creating forms using Power Automate, or ask for assistance. We're happy to help. The next is the note section. So this section, again, is another form of automation where I can add notes. And you can see an example here. I'm plugging notes into Evernote. So finally, let's summarize here. So we've gone through the creation of tasks. We started with talking about collaboration and driving clarity into the organization. We've decided that creating these strategic plans is the best way to do that. We can have this where the whole group's together, but they can all be separate when we start using task management. We talked about this idea of standardizing task creation and automating that into a form. And then finally, buckets. So within each of the plans that we create here, we have buckets. And we can create these buckets individually. As you can see here, I have 4 buckets: to do, task out, execute, and follow up. And I can move tasks within these buckets freely, adjust their due dates, do whatever it is that's necessary for me to accomplish these tasks. When I do this, it generates an email message, and that email message will come into the organization for whoever's part of this plan. So if I have 100 people part of this M365 plan, anytime an update comes into one of these tasks, this plan receives an email notification. And that email notification becomes the opportunity for everyone to work collaboratively together to continue to provide that clarity. But somebody could, on a completely different project, they could be assigned to M365 and other things, and M365 may not even be their focus. But when you add that task, it's automatically going to appear in this group, and then they, unassociated perhaps with the specifics of the task, could put in some creative ideas or place in historical information. This is a great method to truly build a collaborative environment, and it is through that collaboration that an organization can truly optimize their performance. I will tell you from past experience that organization can increase your output by 30 to 40%.